Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might sting a little. The worst thing you can do for your dreams is nothing. Motionless dreams rot, stagnant visions die, and staying still. That's not waiting on the right moment, B. That's sabotaging your future in slow motion. Life is not a lake where you can float forever. It's a river, and a river moves whether you're ready or not. If you're not paddling forward, the current is carrying you backward. Too many people call it patience when it's really procrastination. They call it planning when it's really avoidance. And they call it playing it safe when it's really burying their talent in the ground. Your future does not reward hesitation. Your opportunities are perishable. They have an expiration date. Every day you spend standing still, you're giving up territory you'll have to fight twice as hard to get back. Comfort is one of the most deceptive traps a human being can ever fall into because it feels good while it is quietly destroying the very things you say you want. When you are in a place where your bills are paid, your routines are predictable, and nothing is pressing you to stretch, your mind will try to convince you that this is success. But comfort is not the same thing as success. Comfort is maintenance mode, and maintenance mode was never meant to be your permanent residence. Maintenance mode is just like treading water. You're moving enough to keep your head above the surface, but you are not going anywhere new. You may feel safe, but you are still at the mercy of the current of life not stop because you are comfortable. And while you are sitting in the same place, forces outside of you are shifting, changing, and advancing without your permission. That means the longer you stay still in the name of comfort, the further behind you actually fall. The danger of comfort is that it makes decline feel painless. When you're struggling, you know you're struggling, and that awareness can create urgency. But when you're comfortable, the decline is gradual and almost invisible. The skills you aren't sharpening begin to dull. The opportunities you aren't taking begin to vanish. The relationships you aren't nurturing begin to cool. You don't notice it at first because nothing feels urgent. But years later, you wake up and realize that what used to be a small gap between where you are and where you want to be has turned into a canyon. And the worst part is, you'll start telling yourself that maybe your dreams were big in the first place when the truth is you just stayed still too long. Comfort convinces you to trade the unknown for the familiar, even when the familiar is far below your potential. It whispers that risk is dangerous, that trying again is exhausting, and that maybe you should be grateful for what you have. Gratitude is powerful, but gratitude without growth becomes an excuse for mediocrity. Gratitude should never be a cage. You can be thankful for your current situation and still know it's not your final destination. The problem is, comfort will make you choose the path of least resistance over and over again until it becomes your default setting. Every decision to stay comfortable is a decision to keep your future at arm's length. When you were younger, you dreamed boldly. Imagine what you could be without thinking about whether it was realistic. But somewhere along the line, the desire for stability started to outweigh the desire for progress. Stability is not wrong, but it becomes toxic when it becomes your ceiling. You might think you are preserving what you have by staying comfortable, but you are actually losing more than you realize. Comfort is not a static state. It is a slow leak. You can't stay in the same place forever because life itself is dynamic. Markets change, industries evolve, opportunities rotate, and people who keep moving replace people who don't. Comfort also lowers your standards without you realizing it. What you once called average, you now call acceptable. What you once considered a temporary holding place becomes the place you defend when anyone suggests you could do more. And slowly, the fire inside you turns into warm ashes. It's not that you don't want more, you just don't want it bad enough to face the discomfort that growth requires. This is the hidden cost of comfort. They exchanges your potential for predictability, and it does it so subtly that you hardly notice until it's too late. In a comfortable place, your imagination shrinks. Your creativity becomes less about innovation and more about problem solving only within the limits of your current reality. You stop asking what's possible and start asking what's practical. And while practicality has its place, it should never be the engine that drives your vision. Comfort will make you play small, and the longer you play small, the harder it is to remember what playing big even feels like. The scariest thing about comfort is that it doesn't challenge you to grow. Growth comes from friction, from pushing against something that pushes back, from stretching beyond what you thought was possible. Comfort offers no resistance, and without resistance, your capacity weakens. Just like muscles atrophy without use, ambition withers without challenge. You may not see it in a month or even a year, but over time, the effect is undeniable. The people who keep growing past you by not because they were more talented, but because they were willing to be uncomfortable long enough to transform. The truth is, comfort doesn't cost you nothing. It costs you everything you could have been. It costs you the influence you could have built, the wealth you could have created, the people you could have impacted, and the legacy you could have left. But it doesn't take it all at once. It takes it in small, daily withdrawals so you don't notice until your future account is empty. And by the time you realize what happened, the years you could have used to change your situation are gone, spent not in failure or risk, but in the quiet, gradual sinking that comes from staying still in the name of comfort. They see the strength of the current of life is moving whether you are ready or not, whether you choose to participate or not, whether you believe it's fair or not. It is not something you can pause or rewind. It does not wait for you to feel ready, and it does not slow down because you are tired. It is relentless, and it carries everything along with it. The idea that you can just stand still and hold your ground is a comforting illusion, but it is not reality. Even when you think you are maintaining your position, the truth is the current is shifting you, and if you are not actively moving forward, you are drifting backward. This is why people can wake up after 5 years, still in the same job, still in the same income bracket, still surrounded by the same conversations, and realize they have less influence, fewer opportunities, and more competition than they had before. The current didn't stop for them. It moved on, and so did the world. In every area of life, advancement is taking place. Technology is developing at a speed that was unimaginable a generation ago. New markets are being born while others are fading into relevance. The people are learning new skills, refining their talents, and positioning themselves for opportunities that didn't even exist last year. If you choose to remain still, you are not just staying the same, you are becoming outdated. The very things that made you valuable yesterday can lose their relevance tomorrow if you do not keep growing. What was cutting edge 5 years ago is now standard, and what is standard today will be obsolete before long. The current moves that quickly. This is not just about professional skills. It's also about relationships, health, and mindset. Friendships evolve, and if you are not intentionally nurturing them, you may find that the people you once relied on have drifted into other circles. Your body changes, and if you are not actively maintaining your health, small declines add up to major problems. Your mindset shifts, and without consistent input of new perspectives, you begin to think smaller, dream less, and rationalize more. The current of life moves in every direction, and stillness is not neutral. It is passive surrender to whatever the current decides to do with you. Some people believe they are waiting for the right season before they take action, as though life will eventually settle into a calm, quiet pond where they can make decisions without pressure. That season never comes. The current will always be there, and if you're not using its movement to your advantage, you're letting it carry you to places you didn't intend to go. The current will not ask your permission before it changes direction. Industries can shift overnight, economies can turn without warning, and trends can transform so fast that what was in demand yesterday is irrelevant today. Consider the way the marketplace changes. A business that thrived for decades can suddenly be replaced by a new model that meets people's needs more effectively. Think about what happened to companies that refused to adapt to digital technology, believing their traditional methods were enough. They didn't just fail to grow. They were erased, not because they lacked resources, but because they underestimated how quickly the current could change course. That same principle applies to individuals. If you are relying on old methods, old habits, and old thinking to secure your future, you are giving yourself an expiration date. Even in personal life, the current is at work. Children grow whether you invest in their development or not. Your marriage will evolve for better or worse, whether you put in effort or not. Your character will shift depending on the influences you allow into your life, whether you are aware of it or not. The current is not selective. It moves every single area of your life forward or backward. The myth of staying still comes from the belief that stability is possible without effort. But true stability from constant adjustment, like a sailor making small course corrections to stay on track. A ship that drops anchor in a moving current does not remain in place. It drifts, dragged along by forces it cannot control. Likewise, a person stops growing is still moving, but in the wrong direction. The motion is invisible at first, but it accumulates. One day you look around and realize you're far from where you intended to be, not because of one big mistake, because of small moments when you chose not to act. In the same way that a river shapes the landscape around it over time, the current of life shapes you. It carves into your routines, it reshapes your priorities, and it either sharpens your skills or dulls them. If you resist moving with it, you are not stopping its work. You are simply giving up our power to influence the direction. This is why people who were once leaders can fade into obscurity, why opportunities once within reach can disappear. They see that, and why dreams once alive can grow distant and faint. The current keeps moving, and the question is never whether it will change, it's whether you will change with it. Opportunities have a lifespan, and most people underestimate how quickly that clock runs out. When a door opens, it is not a permanent fixture. It is a moment, a window in time that exists for a season, and that season is often shorter than you think. The problem is that hesitation feels harmless. You tell yourself you will decide tomorrow, that you will take action after things settle down, that you just need to get a few more details before you commit. But every delay is a silent countdown toward the moment that opportunity disappears. Sometimes without warning and without a second chance, life does not pause to wait for you to feel ready, and readiness is often an illusion people hide behind to avoid the discomfort of moving forward. Opportunities are living things in a way. When they first appear, they are vibrant and full of potential, but if they are ignored or neglected, they wither. This is true in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and even in health. There is a moment when the risk is worth taking and the return is ripe for the harvest. That moment rarely announces itself with clarity. It's recognized in hindsight by the people who missed it and felt the sting of regret. Those who seize opportunities understand that hesitation is often more dangerous than failure, because failure at least teaches you something. Hesitation teaches you nothing. It only takes away what could have been. Think about the times you heard someone say, I could have bought that property, it was cheap, or I had a chance to work with that person before they became successful. These are not just nostalgic stories. They are reminders that opportunities operate on their own timelines, not yours. The market will not freeze in place because you are indecisive. The person you could have partnered with will not stay in the same place waiting for you to show up. The idea you had will not be unique forever. Someone else is moving on it while you are still debating whether it's worth the effort. The fear of making the wrong decision keeps many people from making any decision at all, but not deciding is a decision in itself. It is a decision to let time make the choice for you, and time is not on your side when it comes to opportunity. Opportunities are perishable because the conditions that make them valuable change. Timing is a critical factor. The perfect conditions you think you are waiting for may never align again, and if they do, they may not look the same. This is why the people who move quickly, even if imperfectly, often see more success than those who wait for absolute certainty. They understand that motion is more important than perfection when the clock is ticking. Some opportunities are not just about financial or professional gain. They are about relationships, experiences, and personal transformation. There are moments to speak up, to invest in someone, to take a trip, to learn a new skill, to apologize, or to say yes to something that stretches you. If you let those moments pass, you may never get the same chance again. The friendship you could have built may fade. The person you could have learned from may move on. The skill you could have mastered may no longer be relevant by the time you decide to start. Opportunities are not infinite, and they are not patient. People sometimes believe they will recognize when it is the right time to act, but often the right feels inconvenient. It shows up when you are busy, when you are tired, when you are not financially or emotionally prepared. This is the test. Opportunities do not arrive when they fit neatly into your calendar. They arrive when they require you to stretch. If you only take action when it is easy, you will miss the majority of your chances, because most valuable opportunities come wrapped in challenge and uncertainty. Opportunities also test your ability to trust your own instincts. The longer you wait, the more likely you are to talk yourself out of what you know deep down you should do. You start making lists of reasons why it might not work instead of acting on the reasons it could. You gather opinions, and in doing so, you dilute your conviction until the urgency disappears. By the time you decide, the moment has passed, the offer is gone, or the conditions shifted so much that it no longer holds the same value. They see expiration of opportunity is rarely loud. It's quiet. There is no dramatic announcement when the window closes. It simply stops being available, and you realize too late that what was once possible is now out of reach. This is why treating every opportunity as if it could vanish tomorrow changes the way you live. It forces you to evaluate quickly, to commit decisively, and to trust that progress comes through action, not endless deliberation. The people who create extraordinary futures are not necessarily the most skilled or the most connected. They are the ones who respect the fleeting nature of opportunity enough to move when others are still thinking. Fear rarely introduces itself as fear. It does not always come to you with shaking hands, a racing heartbeat, or a sense of panic. More often, it dresses itself in language that sounds wise, responsible, and even strategic. It hides under phrases like, I'm just waiting for the perfect time, or I need to do a little more research, or I'll start once things calm down. These words feel safe, but they are often nothing more than fear wearing a respectable mask. The danger of this disguise is that it allows fear to operate undetected, influencing your decisions without you realizing it. You tell yourself you are being cautious when you are really avoiding the discomfort that comes taking a leap. The perfect time is a myth. Life does not arrange itself neatly so you can pursue your goals without distraction, risk, or uncertainty. There will always be reasons to wait if you are looking for them. There will always be bills to pay, unexpected problems to solve, and moments when you don't feel ready. Waiting for perfect timing is just giving fear more room to negotiate with your dreams. Fear thrives in delay. The longer you wait, the louder it becomes, because it uses time to feed you more doubts, more what ifs, and more imagined disasters that keep you paralyzed. Fear also knows how to manipulate your logic. It makes you believe that hesitation is prudence, that slowing down is wisdom, and that not making a move is the smart choice until you have all the answers. But having all the answers is impossible, and the pursuit of certainty often becomes the very thing that keeps you from progress. This is why people can spend years circling the same decision, never committing to action, yet convincing themselves they are simply being thorough. In reality, they are allowing fear to build walls around their potential while they decorate those walls with what they call preparation. One of the reasons fear is so effective at disguising itself is that it appeals to your desire for control. It tells you that if you just wait a little longer, you can remove all risk and guarantee a favorable outcome. But control in its purest form is an illusion. You cannot control every variable. And trying to do so is like trying to hold water in your hands. It will always slip through your fingers. What you can control is your decision to move forward despite not knowing everything. That is where progress lies. And that is where fear loses its grip. The irony is that the longer you wait for the perfect time, the less perfect your circumstances become. Opportunities vanish. Energy fades. The urgency that once made you excited about your goal gets buried under layers of hesitation. Fear knows this and uses it to its advantage. It will let you dream as long as your dreams stay in your head. It will even let you plan, strategize, and talk about your goals to anyone who will listen. What fear will not allow without resistance action, because action exposes it. Action reveals that many of the problems you imagine either don't exist or are smaller than you thought. They fear disguised as waiting can also convince you that you are protecting yourself from failure, but what you are really doing is guaranteeing a different kind of failure, the failure to even try. And people who never attempt their goals because they are waiting for right conditions often experience regret that cuts deeper than the regret of making mistakes. When you take action and fail, you can recover, adjust, and try again. When you never take action, you lose the chance entirely, and you are left with nothing to adjust, nothing to improve, and no progress to build upon. Sometimes the disguise is so convincing that you don't realize fear has been steering your life until years have passed. You wake up and recognize that the goals you once felt passionate about have been reduced to stories you tell about what could have been. The saddest part is that you might still believe you were being responsible the whole time, when in truth you were letting fear manage your pace. And fear has only one speed when it comes to your dreams, slow enough to make sure you never arrive. Fear also exploits the opinions of others. When you are already hesitant, you tend to seek out voices that validate your hesitation. You ask for more advice because you need it, but because you are looking for someone to confirm that waiting is the right move. You might even find people who will agree with you, not because they understand your potential, because they are ruled by the same disguised fear themselves. The result is a chorus of agreement that sounds like wisdom, but is really just shared avoidance. This is why it is so important to learn how to recognize the difference between genuine strategic patience and fear in disguise. Strategic patience is intentional. It comes with a clear plan and a defined timeline. Fear in disguise is open-ended. It delays without commitment and waits without direction. Strategic patience positions you for better execution. Fear in disguise convinces you that execution can wait indefinitely. The longer you allow fear to wear this disguise, the easier it becomes to believe its lies and the harder it becomes to tell the difference between safety and stagnation. Clarity is often seen as the starting point for action, but in reality, it is the byproduct of movement. People spend years trying to think their way into certainty, mapping out every possible scenario, and waiting until they can see the entire path before they take the first step. This approach feels logical, but it is backwards. You do not stand still and discover clarity. You step forward into the unknown, and clarity begins to form as you go. It is like trying to navigate a fog-covered road. The more you walk, the more of the path becomes visible. If you wait for the fog to lift completely, you will still be standing in the same place when the day ends, and nothing will have changed. The act of moving creates new information. When you engage with the process, you begin to see what works, what doesn't, and where adjustments are needed. These are things you cannot know from the sidelines because the details are hidden until you are in motion. Planning has its place, but there are limits to what a plan can reveal. Action is what brings the missing pieces into view. You cannot fully prepare for a journey you have never taken, and you cannot truly understand a challenge you have never faced. Movement is the teacher that clarity listens to. Many people confuse thinking with progress. They mistake planning for building, researching for producing, and strategizing for moving forward. While these are important, they are not substitutes for action. You can only think for so long before your mind starts recycling the same ideas, and that repetition creates the illusion of productivity. Real clarity requires fresh input, and fresh input comes from doing. It comes from testing an idea in the real world, getting feedback, and refining your approach. Without movement, your thinking becomes a closed loop, and closed loops do not lead to breakthroughs. Clarity gained through action is also more reliable than clarity gained through theory. When you are just imagining what might happen, your conclusions are based on assumptions. Assumptions can be wrong, and often they are. When you move, you replace assumptions with experience. You begin to understand the reality of the situation instead of guessing. You might discover that something you feared is actually manageable, or that something you assumed would be easy requires effort. Either way, you are dealing with truth rather than speculation, And truth is a much stronger foundation for decision making. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you act before you have all the answers. You prove to yourself that you can handle uncertainty. The first steps might feel shaky, but each one builds your confidence, and that confidence becomes a source of momentum. Instead of waiting for perfect understanding, you start to trust your ability to figure things out along the way. This mindset changes everything because it frees you from the paralysis of overthinking. You stop needing every detail in advance and start valuing adaptability over rigid certainty. Some of the greatest opportunities are only visible after you have already started. They are hidden behind doors you cannot see from where you are standing now. By moving forward, you put yourself in position to encounter these unexpected possibilities. Standing still keeps them out of reach because they only reveal themselves to people who are in motion. This is why progress often exceeds after the initial step. You discover resources, connections, and ideas that you could not have planned for, and each one opens up a new set of options. Clarity is also cumulative. The more you act, the more insight you gain, and that insight compounds over time. Small steps build into a body of experience that allows you to make better and faster decisions. You develop instincts that come from direct involvement rather than theory, and those instincts guide you with a kind of speed and accuracy that overthinking never can. This is why people who seem decisive are often the ones who have simply spent more time taking action. They have trained themselves to see patterns, and that training only happens through doing. Waiting for clarity before moving often leads to a cycle of endless preparation. You feel like you are not ready because you do not know enough, so you study more, plan more, and prepare more. They see the strength of because you never move, the knowledge you gain remains disconnected from reality. You are learning about something instead of learning through something. Action turns abstract knowledge into applied wisdom, and applied wisdom is what produces results. Without action, even the best ideas remain theory, and theory alone does not create change. The belief that clarity must come first is one of the most effective ways to delay progress. It gives you permission to remain in a safe place while convincing yourself that you are working toward your goal. But real progress starts when you reverse that order, when you accept that clarity is earned, not given, and that earning it requires movement. The fog will not clear while you stand still, but it will begin to lift the moment you take your first step. Each step after that will reveal more, not because the path changed, because you changed by stepping onto it. Your future self is being shaped by every decision you make right now, whether you are aware of it or not. 10 years from today, you will meet the person you have been building through your daily actions, habits, and choices. That person will either be proud of you for moving forward despite challenges, or they will carry the weight of your hesitation, your excuses, and your missed opportunities. The truth is, you are in constant collaboration with your future self, and every moment is a vote for the kind of life you will eventually live. The question is not whether you are building a future, you are, but whether you are building the one you actually want. Every day you choose to move forward, you are adding to the foundation your future self will stand on. That foundation might be built with discipline and courage and intentional decisions, or it might be built with avoidance, fear, and procrastination. The materials you use are determined by your present actions. If you spend your days postponing effort, telling yourself will start tomorrow, or waiting for perfect conditions, you are leaving your future self to live in a house built on sand. The storms will come, and without a solid base, that house will not hold. When you take action and are sending a gift forward in time, it may not feel like much in the moment. An extra hour of study, a small financial investment, a tough conversation you decide to have. But these decisions compound. The skills you gain, the relationships you build, and the resilience you develop are assets your future self will be able to use. They are seeds you plant today that will grow into a harvest later. The problem is many people want the harvest without planting the seeds. They want the results without paying the price in advance. But time will only deliver to you what have invested into it. It is easy to imagine that your future self will somehow be more motivated, more disciplined, and more capable than you are right now. But that version you can only exist if you create them. The idea that you will magically become the person you admire without changing your present habits is a comforting lie. If you cannot take action now, in the reality you live in today, why would you suddenly be able to do it later? Your future self is simply the result of the repetition of your current self's behaviors. If those behaviors are weak, undisciplined, and inconsistent, you are training your future self to be the same. Think about the opportunities that will be available to you in a decade. Some of them will be the result of deliberate action you take now. Others will be out of reach if you fail to prepare for them. If you are hoping for a better job, a stronger business, or greater financial freedom, those outcomes require groundwork that cannot be built overnight. Your future self will either thank you for starting early or resent you for leaving them unprepared. And it will not be because they lack talent. It will be because you, in this moment, chose to stand still when you could have moved. Every delay has a cost, and the cost is always paid by your future self. When you avoid making a decision today, you are transferring the burden of that decision to the person you will be later. who will have less time and possibly fewer options. You are leaving them to solve problems you could have started addressing now. That is not kindness, it is neglect, and it is often disguised as harmless waiting, when in reality it is creating unnecessary struggle down the line. Your future self also inherits your habits, both good and bad. If you develop the habit of taking consistent, intentional action now, they will be stronger, more confident, and better equipped. If you develop the habit of delaying, rationalizing, and avoiding discomfort, they will be weaker, more frustrated, and further behind. This is why every small choice matters, even when it doesn't seem significant. Choosing to learn a new skill, exercise, save money, or expand your network may not produce immediate results, but it is an investment that pays off exponentially over time. The relationship between your present self and your future self is like a relay race. At some point, you will hand the baton forward, and the person receiving it will either have momentum or they will have to start from a dead stop. You decide right now whether you will set them up to run strong or force them to waste energy making up for lost ground. The version of that you hope to become is not waiting for the right conditions to appear. They are being formed in the grind, the decisions, and the uncomfortable steps you take today. Your future self is counting on you to start running now, not later.